session. We have one gentleman that'll be here in a minute, but we'll get started. We did open the meeting at 6:30 and immediately go into executive session to discuss the superintendent's performance and also contract. We'll be continuing that conversation over the coming weeks and months. We approved the agenda at 6:30. Did we?
No,
Actually,
we did not.
approve it.
No.
So can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. As we do at the beginning and end of every meeting, we have an opportunity for comments from the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak? And I'll remind you, if you do come up, you need to state your name, your street address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Dr. Smith and members of the Board of Education. My name is Brian Ladwig. I live at 33 Wilton Crest, and
I'm Jim Kenyon. I live at 44 Bald Hill Road.
and we're on the executive board of the Wilton Education Foundation. So we're excited to come before you tonight just to share some information with you about our efforts recently to do some fundraising on behalf of the schools and to talk with you about some upcoming initiatives that we have. As I know you're all aware, we've got just a tremendous community with great support for our schools, and there's a really great group of people that are dedicated to volunteering their time that we're very proud to be a part of. And we host a lot of community-based initiatives, as you're aware. Reading Rocks just recently was a great success, and we had tremendous participation, which was really exciting. And through those fundraising efforts, we're pleased to be able to present a donation to the district tonight. 2 checks, actually. One for a recent grant from Sarah Dobles at the high school for the robotics club. We're excited to be able to donate $1,425 to that cause so that she's able to get the robotics team up and ready for competition, which is really exciting to see. And we also have another donation of $10,000, and that will go to support professional development. That's part of an ongoing grant that we've been making to the district for a number of years. And last year, I know recently, as this past summer, we, I think, supported the professional development for 23 teachers in the district to go to a variety of different learning experiences. And I'll just say briefly that one of the things that makes us so proud is that the faculty here in Wilton are so committed to the success of students, to being innovative, to being creative, and it's a great source of pride that the Wilton Education Foundation can support that and create some great experiences for the kids of our community. So we're glad to be partners with you in doing that.
Well, thank you very much. We cannot express greater appreciation for everything that WEF does and the work that each of you and all of the volunteers do. Thank you so much.
Great.
Well, we're also hoping that that you'll be joining us. We've got a couple of events coming up that are a lot of fun and that will help to sort of provide additional funding. The first one is this Saturday. We've got Acoustic Wilton, which is a lot of fun. It's sponsored by and heavily supported by the various students from within the 4 schools. Every year, it's just a lot of fun. We also have, and we're focused on promoting and supporting the Learning Commons initiatives in the 4 schools. So we've got a big fundraiser coming up at the end of the month on March 24th, where it's going to give you an opportunity to come to the prom, and so it's going to be fun. There are a lot of fun and great prizes, but at the base of it all, it's just going to help to promote and to push forth the Learning Commons initiatives. And then there are 2 others. One in April that's Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? That's the end of April, and then we also have our run over Memorial Day.
Wonderful. I can tell you that Dr. Smith and his wife and Mrs. Likely and I will be at the prom. Awesome. And we put the challenge out to both the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen to try to get some folks to join us.
My husband and I will be there too.
That's right.
Excellent.
That's right.
We're looking forward to that.
So, wonderful. Thank you very, very much. Can I get a quick photo op with you and
Sure.
Dr. Smith?
Sure.
How about
No,
you as
no.
chairman of the board?
No, it'll be you. I'll run the camera because you didn't bring your phone.
Yeah, we
Oh,
can
perfect.
take a picture.
Yeah, that's
So you could get in the picture too.
Cameras go.
There you go.
Go ahead, Bruce.
This is great. We'll take all the checks that Great, so here, one, yeah.
One for each of you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I went to
Okay, ready? Okay. Our station.
Great, thank you.
This particular crab and I now carry around in my
Okay. Whatever.
Great. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak?
This is for me too.
No. It's just I pulling things out and I remind myself.
Siri says 3 minutes. Just kidding.
It's right there.
I'm not quite sure why. I did
Android
that.
turns on by itself.
Yeah, that's right. State your name.
Mary Ann
Address.
Gustafson. I'm on Fox Run. I've given my address, but it's been used against me before. I just had a few comments about budget and some of the initiatives that we're starting. And I comment this, wanting to be positive and looking for ways to be creative. So I'm not looking for answers tonight, I just want to get my questions out. I had asked a few months ago to get a list of the approved textbooks and teaching materials that we use in our high school. And the comment that came back from the schools was we don't maintain or keep one of those. I think in the efforts of being open and transparent and letting parents, families, students, and residents know what it is we're teaching in our schools, I think that's not an acceptable position. I volunteered to help put it together. No one ever got back to me on it. I would actually say among the many communities I've visited in other regions, I can go into a public library in the community and look at all the books that are being used in the schools. It's been a wonderful asset for people coming to visit, for kids in the community, to get an assessment of, where the curriculum is, what's being taught. So saying that in a $75 million budget, we don't maintain an inventory list of teaching materials and what our teachers are using, I just don't think is a good policy. I'd like to see that change. I do have a question on budget-wise regarding, you were relying heavily on the District Management Council report that you invested heavily in. I don't know if it was $100,000 or $200,000 that it cost, but I think it was paid over 2 years under the contract. And it did identify on page 29 that there were $2 million in annual savings that could be achieved in the proper best practices of scheduling services for students in physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. I'd like to see that we could provide, actually disclose to the residents what we're achieving, where, how much of that we've achieved. I think I heard, that we may be only achieving a little under 50,000 so far. But we need to be able to show the community that we're doing this. I would imagine, I know at the May budget referendum meeting, town meeting, I asked that the details of that report be made available, because it's a great, easily read report at 30 pages or so, but I'm sure you got details on it, and I think that would be helpful to have it available. Yet we continue to use the DMC report to support spending $1.5 million or so on the coaching, I'll call it that because I don't know what you're actually calling it, adding 11 administrators to coach teachers to be better teachers. So on one hand, you're using it to enhance and add staff to do things. On the other hand, I'm looking for those savings. Best practices are best practices. I think everyone wins, and I think they talked about using it in ways that we can use those resources elsewhere. So if there's a timeline that's been provided about when we're going to be achieving those savings, I think that would be really helpful for the residents. I think that would give them a good sense of, you know, we're taking both ends of this report.
If you have more comments, I'd like to ask you to bring them up later in the meeting.
Okay.
We have a second session at the end.
Fine, yeah, I do. I have a few others, and then I'll send them to you, because I really believe that this needs to be addressed. It's to the benefit of the families, the children, and the residents, that all are shareholders and stakeholders in this budget.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we move on to the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at that? Questions, comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we move on to reports and recognition. The only thing that I have to say is, as chairman, is, again, thank you very much to WEF. Absolutely amazing. And based on the texts and emails that I'm getting, most of Wilton wants to know whether or not they're gonna get a phone call tomorrow morning about a snow day.
That's true.
Well, I'll leave it at that. I'll tell you where my bet's at, but with that, superintendent's report?
Great, I have a number of items. I think I join you. Well, let me address the snow. I'll let you know after 4 a.m. tomorrow where we are with the snow. I think next week actually is the bigger threat, if I understand the weather prognosticators. I want to also join you in thanking WEF. I mean, they've been really exceptional partners in supporting some of the really innovative work that's going on here in our system. And Jim in particular, he joined us a few weeks ago at Cider Mill when we had our Innovation Day, and we brought in folks from 12 or 15 other districts. So they've been wonderful partners. Jen and I are looking forward to the prom in a couple of weeks. So I want to thank them for their continued support. Wanted to recognize one of our high schoolers, Victoria Konigsberger, who was the recipient of the Prudential Spirit of Community Award and the President's Volunteer Service Award. Another student who contributes significant hours to community service, and so we want to recognize and thank her. Yesterday, we held our first Realtor Coffee and Tour at Miller Driscoll. Kathy and her team did an exceptional job putting together a presentation, rallying some of our PTA folks to provide tours. We had 50 or so realtors come. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. So we're looking forward to doing that again in the coming weeks at each of the other 3 schools. And so that was a really great way that we can partner with that group, and I know they were very appreciative of having access to our staff to getting some information and then touring the school. Great. So last piece, what is weighing most heavily on my mind these days is the status of our budget. As you know, last week you approved my proposal, which recommends a 0% increase. I'm very concerned that given the current fiscal climate here in the town, that our budget's going to be taken down, and we're going to be forced to either defer or eliminate programs. And I think those reductions will diminish the quality of the public education that we provide here to the residents of Wilton. Some of those reductions may be more immediate, and others may be longer term in terms of the overall degradation. So in worrying about that and anticipating that possibility, over the last number of weeks, I've been engaging our district administrators in conversations about potential reductions. And what we've done is developed a process and some guidelines and principles that we need to adhere to, or would like to try to adhere to, as we're entertaining potential public budget reductions. I'll circulate this to you so you can see kind of where our thinking is. But just in order of priority, as we're thinking about what might happen to our budget and the changes we might have to make as a result, first and foremost, any kinds of reductions we're going to have to make, we're trying to minimize the impact on students, followed by minimizing impact on teachers. Again, this is work that's been underway since I've been here anyway, and I'm sure before me, but wherever possible, continuing to search for efficiencies in our operation. As we're thinking about potential reductions, We also need to give consideration to proportional reductions across schools. We need to ensure that we're providing the mandated curriculum. If we're looking at proposed programming reductions or elimination, we need to ensure that we conduct an analysis that really is focused on student outcomes and making sure that that's really kind of forefront in the decision making. And then we also, as we're entertaining these, we need to be informed by the community values, and what parents and other residents really see as the value added in our total program. We're also, I think, as we're entertaining this, need to look at opportunities that we might access to increase revenue. So looking at pay to participate, looking at parking fees, building rental fees, advertising, and wherever else we can go to increase the revenue side. I think the other piece that we talked about, central to the budget proposal this year, is the addition of a library media specialist at Middlebrook and one at the high school, as well as some restructuring of the para-support staff in those places. Those are very intentional proposals designed to continue to drive our learning commons development and curriculum, but also to support the transition that we're making toward a one-to-one or BYOD environment. And I think the consensus among the principals and the central office staff is right now, if we are in a position where we have to defer that hiring, then we probably shouldn't go forward with any kind of one-to-one proposal, because we're not going to have the personnel infrastructure to support teachers and kids as they're working on this in the building. So that was a significant piece of the conversation we've had. And then the last piece is we need to be very mindful of protecting the operating capital that's in the budget. We've deferred some expenditures, I think, around maintenance and improvement of facilities for good reason, but I'm very leery of continuing to kick that can down the road because of budget constraints. So those are kind of what we laid out as guidelines and considerations. I'll circulate that to you. So using that, we've started to talk about what funding reductions could look like at various levels, beginning as at the $100,000, $200,000 level, and then moving up a continuum to the multi-millions of dollars. Haven't finished our thinking yet, but my intention would be to put our thoughts on paper, share them with the board and have some discussion, but also share them with staff members as well as parents, and so people can see what we're thinking. My concern is if we have to make these reductions, we always try everywhere to avoid impacting kids, but we're already at a flat budget, and I don't see where we have lots and lots of place to go. So those kinds of decisions have real consequences, and I think we need to be as upfront and proactive and engage as many people as possible about what the impact of these choices are. So you can expect that in the coming week or so, and then we'll go from there and see how the rest of the process unfolds, both with the local decision making as well as what's unfolding at the state and federal level.
Thank you. That was depressing.
Yes, sorry.
I'm hopeful that the entire community takes the time to educate themselves on our budget, on the town's budget, and gets involved. Because without getting involved, they have no voice afterwards. Now they have a voice. We move on to committee reports. Lori?
Today, the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, we met this morning and discussed a few things. One of the items is on our agenda tonight, and that's the 18 to 21 year-old program called Community Steps. So we had a detailed review of that this morning and asked a lot of questions, and I think the people who are here tonight are well prepared to present this exciting program to you, which I think really kind of puts the other bookend into our offerings. We have the terrific preschool, and now we'll have a program for the kids in the older age group, and so it really kind of completes the circle of education in our community. So it's a really exciting program, and it's going to save us a lot of money too, so that's a positive thing. We also looked at initial plans for the one-on-one digital device process and bring your own device. We had some pushback on some items, and the main thing is we asked Fran to go back and work closely with the teachers about implementation and how that would work, and get their ideas and advice on how to make parts of this program work, and she was very enthusiastic to do that, so that was all very positive. I also wanted to say that I know at the high school, on Tuesday, there is a coffee with the principal, Bob O'Donnell, to discuss the Bring Your Own Device. And I just wanted the community to know that this is just the first meeting and that he will be offering other sessions coming up. So if you can't be here on Tuesday, don't worry, you'll have plenty of opportunity to learn more about all of that. And then we also got an initial review of a 6141 for a program called the Virtual High School, which would help expand our course offerings to our students, and that will be coming to the board, I think, in April, or did we put it in?
The 23rd.
The
23rd of
yeah,
March,
for first
we'll
look.
be seeing
For
that too.
discussion,
Right.
right? Well, so we can discuss and review it.
For
And then
discussion
we
and review,
will vote
and then
on it in
April
April.
would be approval or not, so that's what's going on there.
Great, thank you. Chris?
We haven't met since our last meeting.
Okay, very quickly, the Village School Building Committee met tonight, and we are very simple to report on schedule and on budget, and are looking to vacate the portable classrooms at the end of by the end of April, and have those students moved into the building. And right now, we're working with the administration to facilitate that, plan that, and schedule that, how that would happen. But the portables will then go away, and it's going well. The Ops Committee met 2 weeks ago. We did not meet this morning, but 2 weeks ago, we had a wonderful presentation about HR initiatives and what's going on in the HR department. And then the balance of the meeting, discussion regarding budget, and which it always seems to occupy a great deal of the time with the Board of Finance representatives. We'll continue to work on that. Okay.
Great, thank you. Anything from the PTAs?
We just met last week, so,
Okay.
I mean, the board of ed.
Right, okay.
So,
Great, thank you.
still a great, great organization. They contribute a lot, and, just a great form of communication. So read, Fred, okay. Read your newsletters. I mean, like, the PTA send out newsletters every week, and, parents should read them. They have a lot of information, like Lori, mentioned, something from the high school newsletter about Bob O'Donnell's coffee, about the Bring Your Own Device, so.
Perfect, thank you.
The Policy Communications Subcommittee met yesterday and discussed a couple new policies that we'll be bringing to the board. One is sponsorship and advertising. As Kevin mentioned, looking at additional revenue sources. We will be bringing a policy that would dictate how what advertising would be permitted in Wilton, what that would look like. We're also looking at the nutrition and physical fitness policy. We'll be bringing a review of that. And the competitive bidding policy that we showed you last Thursday, we've pulled that back and we're going to redo it to make the policy more of what we do. And that would be accompanied by a regulation that says how we do it. I think the policy that we showed you last week was a bit more detailed than was necessary, so that will be coming to our next meeting, and along with a couple bylaw tweaks coming to work. That's it.
Great. In addition to that, from a communications perspective, I know we have a number of students here this evening that wanted to come up and talk to us. If they could come forward at this time, that would be great.
Sure, if I could introduce our three students. Why don't you come up? No hiding behind the table. Although you might like to. I'm very pleased to introduce to the board three of our very accomplished high school students. Madison Schattenfeld, Jessica Hyland, and Peter Orfino. These three students are initiating and going to lead the high school in a campaign called Spread the Word to End the Word. So, Maddie, you want to start us out?
I do. So the goal of Spread the Word to End the Word is to raise awareness about the hurtfulness of the R word and to eliminate its use, as to promote an welcoming and inclusive environment for all. To clarify, we would like to replace the word retarded with the word respect. On March 23rd in the cafeteria, students will take the pledge to support the elimination of the derogatory use of the R word from everyday speech and to promote acceptance and inclusion for all people with intellectual disability.
These t-shirts that we're wearing are going to be sold during the lunch waves over the next 3 Wednesdays. There will also be a feature on the Wilton Warrior about it.
In order to show our support, we have a t-shirt for each of you. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This, and I'll ask, or ask the students, I recall
Thank you, sir.
3, maybe 4 years ago now,
Thanks very much.
a group came forward with the same
Top inclusion
initiative,
model, right?
so-
Yep.
Yep.
Well, that's money, right?
Yes, ma'am. Top
Yeah.
inclusion model.
What was that?
The top inclusion model.
Yeah.
Right, and, thank you so much, Peter.
Thank
We're
you.
we're short on one.
That's
We're
okay, we'll
fine.
share.
I'll share with Mrs. Coleman.
Um,
I'm sorry.
So I think it's interesting to me that even after, 4 years later, that this still continues to be an issue with the way we speak to each other.
I think at the high school, like, it's not really a term that's used that much anymore. I think sometimes outside of school, kids sometimes use it, but I think people will call you out on it and say that that's not okay to use the term. We just want to keep raising awareness.
If I ever hear somebody use it, I will let an administration or any faculty member know right away.
That's good.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
way to go.
Very nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Good luck again. Yeah, thank you.
Now we move
Thanks.
on to the DMC update reading program. And I have notified that we had some sound issues, so I don't know if you guys are getting those under control. The sound was going in and out.
Okay, so tonight we're going to provide you with a couple of updates on our efforts to implement the recommendations from the DMC report. You may recall from the last meeting, I provided you with an update on our work around SRBI. And you also may recall that the DMC also made some recommendations about our general reading program. So we have Gina Dignan here tonight to talk about our reading program. DMC makes some very generic recommendations about reading to every district that they work in. So some of the recommendations we've already met. But Gina will share that with you as well as the areas that we're working to meet.
Great. So, hi everybody. There were 5 categories of reading recommendations, and you can see them up there. They were around standards, core instruction, intervention, effective teaching, and management. So, the major recommendation around management was structural. So, the 2 things that DMC put in the report were to put one person in charge of reading and to have instructional coaching and professional development. So what I tried to provide here is sort of the Walton Public Schools translation of those recommendations. So my position was created. I am sort of in charge of reading, but I work really closely with Chuck and all the other people listed there. And I also, work with the writing curriculum and social studies. And then so I'm in the middle there, and I work very closely with Chuck and the admin teams, and then also with the intervention coordinator, Lynn Driver, all the coaches, K-5, the interventionists, and the classroom teachers. And then moving over to the instructional coaching and professional development, we definitely have a team approach to that. So we're constantly meeting and collaborating with the coaching teams, with the admin teams, and with teachers. And we just had a bunch of professional development this week with some consultants, and the coaches and classroom teachers work alongside each other during that professional development. And we're also constantly working on curriculum development. Okay, another recommendation they made was around clear and rigorous grade level expectations. So like Chuck said, we already had a lot of this in process, so just some of the highlights that we're continuing to work on. With the curriculum development, we have developed a curriculum review cycle. 2 years ago, we had the ELA review committee, and a lot of recommendations came out of that, and so we continue to implement and revise and refine those. One thing that we're really focusing on is utilizing the assessment data to inform instruction. So we're really trying to build our assessment literacy at all levels. So that's something that that we're continuing to work on. You can go to the next one. This is something that I think is at the forefront because a lot of people are talking about our MAP testing because it's new, but that is something that we put in place in response to this recommendation about identifying struggling readers beginning in kindergarten. So we administer that 3 times a year, and then we're also really trying to make the SRBI process, I know you already had an update on that, but we're really trying to make it, you know, it's not so that it's different in every building, so it's systematic across the district. And getting back to the assessment literacy, that also it has a big role in the SRBI process because we need to be reviewing the assessment data. This isn't the last one, but with core instruction and highly skilled and effective teachers of reading. So their recommendations were to have at least 90 minutes a day of balanced core instruction. We do have that. We're continuing to develop our understanding of all the components of balanced literacy and their purposes and using our time efficiently. And then also looking at ways we can expand and find minutes across the day because there never seems to be enough time. And the explicit teaching of phonics and comprehension. We were doing that, but it's something that's pretty complex, and we continue to work on that. Some of the support is obviously around coaching. Julie and I have program days at each building, so we try to design those days to support teachers in the curriculum. And we organize release time for the professional learning. And the last recommendation was around intervention. So that the intervention that is occurring for kids is in addition to their reading time, so that they weren't being taken out of core instruction. And that at the secondary level, the in addition to time is an additional class period. That's the way we were able to work that in. One area of growth for us is developing Tier 1 intervention support. So this year we're really focused on getting that Tier 2 systematic and in addition to, but we're going to continue to work on the Tier 1, which means in the classroom. And then the tight connection of remediation to core instruction. We do have that. Our interventionists know the curriculum. We've adopted a program called LLI, which is Leveled Literacy Intervention, which really mirrors the work that we ask kids to do every day in the classroom. And one area that we need to work on is providing time for interventionists to consult with classroom teachers on a regular basis. Because of the schedule and because of many factors, that doesn't always happen in a systematic way. So that's an area of growth. I don't know if you have any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much. Oh, you do have one?
A couple.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the DIRG, how do we stack up in our reading scores or reading measurements? Do we have data? Okay. And how do we compare at this point in time?
We're at the lower bottom.
Okay. Have we looked at, and it would follow then that, does that call into question the curriculum we're using?
Mm-hmm.
And have we examined those schools that are outperforming us, the curriculum they're using?
Mhm.
And have we adopted that curriculum? Have we looked at, where are we in the process of identifying curriculum opportunities? You and I have talked a couple of years ago about a teaching philosophy or a reading approach. And I'm just curious about where we are. If we're at the lower level. This is all well and good, but where are we in selecting, developing, and deciding on the curriculum that we're using?
To be honest with you, all of the DIRG districts that I am familiar with use the same approach to teaching reading, which is the workshop model. I think we may have started this a little later than some of the other districts. And like Gina said, we're in the process of refining our understanding. We've spent a lot of time the past few years helping teachers to acquire an understanding and an ability to implement the various components. But comprehensive literacy doesn't work unless you are able to integrate all of the components in a very high-level way. And that's the level of work that we're doing now. Would you add anything?
Yeah, I do think that in speaking to my colleagues in other districts, we're very much in line with what they're doing. I think that one key difference is that moving towards the Common Core, we came a little later to that as a district, and so I think that's a reality.
Well, that was a reality in math also, so we're just late to the party.
But
Yes,
we're
that's
moving
the-
in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I know that our scores are important in the DIRG, but I think walking around in classrooms and seeing the work that students are producing is really important as well. And what I see, I know we're moving in the right direction.
So that raises a question for me. Our SAT scores of our graduating high school students are stellar, which tells me something good is happening between less than stellar reading scores at the lower grades, and by the time we put these kids through this wonderful machine and spit them out the other end. What do you think is happening to cause that, and how long do you think it's going to take to bring the reading scores in line? And once we get those reading scores in line, assuming we don't break anything down the way, do we expect those SAT scores to get even better?
My only point would be that SAT and SBAC are very different tests measuring different things. So it's quite possible that all this wonderful work that we see going on in classrooms is better aligned to what the SAT measures.
SBAC measures, or SAT measures?
SAT, because you
Okay.
were saying our SAT
Okay.
scores are good.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to diminish, the high school does some wonderful work with the kids, and I'm sure they're going to continue with it. But, you know, the SBAC's a little different, and we were late in tooling up to address that. I think it's hard for me to answer the question about how long this will
Yeah.
take. I'm hoping sooner rather than later. But, you know, teachers are working really hard, and we're trying to support them as best we can, and my anticipation is it'll take a couple of years.
And I think the fact that we're building our assessment literacy
Yes.
is an important one, because that means you know, all the different levels of assessment, and especially with the map data, really being able to use that to inform instruction and understand its alignment to the SBA. So we're in the learning process with that. But again, I'm going to be repetitive, but I do think we're moving in the right direction.
So parents shouldn't be nervous. It will take 2 to 3 years to get it ironed out,
Yeah.
and we still need to realize we're kicking out good
Yeah.
kids.
And I just want to note that our scores, while they're lower in the DIRG, they aren't horrible. But I want our scores to be better inside our DIRG, because I know our students can achieve that. But just to put it in perspective.
One quick question, is cursive anywhere a component of this?
Yes. So we have well, I just want to note that that's not part of the Common Core, but we
Well,
do
yeah,
teach
that's
it.
a problem. That's part of the problem. Yeah.
But we do teach it. It's introduced in 3rd grade, and then it's reinforced in 4th and 5th. And
Yeah.
so students have a choice of how they want to express themselves.
That's one of the new programs we implemented. It's called Handwriting Without Tears.
Hey, you know, well done, I just got you.
Wonderful.
Well, also just, I mean, test scores are important, as you said, Gina, but keep in mind, like, we're going to be producing, and we are already producing students who love to read, who are willing to read above, you know, their comfort level, and understand math concepts, like, they're not just memorizing multiplication tables, and they're gonna carry that forward, so, you know, the test scores will reflect that, but I think, and our teachers are providing this environment, and, you know, again, Lori and I hear all these great stories about things that, about kids responding to the workshop models.
I know that we're still in the implementation phases with this, but are we at a point where we can quantify numbers of students who have not needed special education services because of intervention? That we've sort of caught them early, and are we not there yet?
I think at some
That
point
is.
you're going to see an impact of SRBI on the referral rate, but
Right,
I'm
that's
not
what
so
I'm
sure
looking
we've
for.
seen
Okay.
that quite yet.
Not yet. Okay.
In my experience in Greenwich, it took 2 to 3 years, but we saw a precipitous drop right
Yeah.
after that.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful. Anything else? Thank you so much for all you're doing.
Thank you.
We now move on to the DMC update relative to special education. And I'm getting reports that the sound has been fixed. If anybody feels otherwise, let me know.
I'm gonna ask Sharon to join me up here. She doesn't really want to, but she is. She's very modest, but she does a great deal of good work here, and I want her up at the table.
Great. You survived
She's
our
back
last.
for the second time in a row.
Sharon, you survived the meeting last week.
I did, thank you, much to your kindness.
We wanted to update the board on some of the major initiatives we've been working on in special education. Many of them come from the DMC report. We've certainly used that as a springboard and as a focus for some of the important work that I think we're doing in the district. The first initiative you heard about in detail last week, and that was the preschool. What you've seen in the packet that will be displayed and that was sent to you was our action plan to implement, to design and implement an effective, a cost-effective program and a program that could develop very high quality intervention to our preschool students. Again, a mandated program, but an opportunity to really showcase it in the community. And I think as the Realtor Group saw, between the wonderful new physical plant and the development of the program under Kathy and Bernadette and Sharon, I think this will be a showcase. So if you can get to the next one. I think you'll see that we're in a very good place with the preschool right now. It's been designed, implemented, and the green means we're on track and good to go. And as you know, part of the DMC consideration was that we're very thoughtful about the services, how we deliver them, and we have interpreted that to mean too that we needed, as Laurie said, to bookend our services out further so that we could more effectively accommodate our students with us in the least restrictive environment. So preschool, I'm pleased to say, is on track and ready to be delivered. That was our first major initiative for the year. The second major initiative we've been working on and we presented to teaching and learning, and we're going to take you through that following this presentation, is the development of a transition program for our students ages 18 to 21. So I'm going to defer some of that discussion until a little later when we have the rest of our staff up here. But following this is, again, I think that very nice color of green that shows that we're on track to deliver this program. We've spent a lot of time this year in very careful consideration, visits, planning, looking at our resources, again, to make a program that's very high quality service and very cost effective to the district. So again, we're going to go into much more detail following this report. As you might recall too, the DMC report focused a portion of its findings to the way in which we deliver related services. And their data showed, and their observation, that our related service staff spent, by their own observation, too much time on paperwork and meetings and not enough time directly servicing our students. So with Sharon's
good effort, we have been very carefully monitoring all of our related service staff to make sure that they were working with their students when appropriate, and it is very often appropriate in small groups or dyads, and that we are beginning to increase the amount of time spent directly servicing students in small groups and away from the paperwork minutia part of special education. This really goes hand in hand in many ways with Chuck's efforts with getting our administrators out into the buildings and in classrooms. We've had a parallel companion piece to having related service staff with students, out of meetings, dedicated time, really working very directly. Part of that work has also involved the cooperation of my colleagues, the principals, because we have finally really solidified PPT days so that not only related service staff, but administrators, all of us, are very dedicated to getting out of meetings, away from our desks and paperworks, and to do the work that we're really here to do, which is working directly with students. At the end of this year, we will take all of our related service staff schedules, and we will again calculate and see where we are towards that benchmark of getting at the 75% of their staff time dedicated to students and working directly with kids. So that's where we are. The work continues. There'll be lots of yellows in this category because this work is ongoing.
Great. Questions, comments?
And I know as part of the DMC study, the staff charted how they spent their time
Yes.
during the day. How is that captured now so that you can see, like you said, that 75%, the goal is to spend 75% of the time with the students. So how are we charting that or keeping track of where they're spending their time now? What we do is at random intervals, we ask all the related staff to submit their schedules and to indicate on that schedule which students they're working with, so we can see where they're singletons. Sharon especially, she is a speech pathologist by trade, will go back and say, let's look at your schedule. Maybe you can explain how you work on it with the staff.
Sure. So I've been working very closely with the building principals, especially in doing that. So collecting their schedules and having them really be thoughtful when they're doing their grouping. So taking a look at their goals and objectives and helping them if they're struggling with how to pair students together or how to more effectively time manage the way that they're transitioning from maybe one setting to another, or helping them build the students' independence by coming to groups, independently instead of having to walk, all the way across the building and then come all the way back and things like that. And then in addition to that, if they're struggling with it, meeting with them one-on-one or two-on-one, Kathy and I have pulled a few groups of people that are struggling to make their schedule work, and sitting down with them and just going through that whole process of how to better allocate their time during the day. And if we do see, if they're telling us that they're spending too much time doing one particular thing, then we look into it on the administrative end and say, how can we alleviate that issue and get them back into the classrooms with the kids, and then really just monitoring the meeting times, making sure they're starting on time. We've been breaking through, Chuck, like you wouldn't believe. So making sure they're starting on time, making sure that parents are aware, we've allotted an hour for this meeting, so we want to make sure that we stick to that time frame so that teachers have the proper amount of time to transition. So there's a lot of pieces to it, but it's mainly just kind of keeping in touch with them and saying, if you're having an issue and you're falling short and you find yourself missing students, we need to regroup and look at it.
So, and that's why it's really an ongoing process. So we have done these periodic polls throughout the year. And it's been a real growth process, I think, for the staff to know this is really a priority.
Other questions, thoughts, comments?
There was a question earlier this evening that you heard speaking about some of the recommendations that if we were able to address group size, address meeting time, hit that target of 75%, then we could, in fact, have the option to reduce staff. One of the areas that the DMC report highlighted was in the area of psychologists. And I think the note in the report at the time was, we have like 4 times the number of the national average or whatever the case may be. But in fact, we've really, I think, so if I have been tracking correctly, we have come down in SLP FTE because some of the changes that you've been able to make. But psychology's been a different area and more of a struggle. Because, and this is what I'd like you to speak to, if you don't mind, because this has really been an area that's been challenging for us. I think the other operating assumption within that report was that the conditions on the ground would remain the same. And one of the areas that psychologists tend to, with a lot of the time, is the diagnostic assessments.
Yes.
And so we've actually seen at Cider Millan, and if you can just speak to this more broadly across the district, it just help our board understand. We've seen recently a spike in the number of referrals, and we're trying to understand why that phenomena is. The upshot of that has been that pool of psychologists is actually stretched thinner in trying to meet the obligations of assessment. So can you just talk to that a little bit, please?
Right, and I think when DMC did the report as a psychologist, I had some questions about their comments. Some psychologists, in school systems focus really on assessment. Our psychologists serve many purposes in the building. They are in the forefront of our school mental health staff. They're available to all students for any issues, school-related issues that are of concern. They work very closely with all of the building administrators around any issues. They're available, of course, to families for any concerns. But they also do a very substantial number of assessments, eligibility for special ed, considerations for 504s, and by virtue of their good professional skills and their being very good professionals and understanding the responsibility of doing an assessment, these are very time-consuming process. And they're very careful, and this is taking a great deal of their time. So we are seeing a spike in referral, parent referrals for consideration for special education. And so our psychologists are actually very, very, very busy with that work. Assessments can take anywhere from 8 hours on up. It's not only the time the student spends across the table doing the eval, there are observations, and then there's the write-up. And given the fact that this is part of a child's record and a very important document, these are quite difficult to write. And so when we get a spike in referrals, they're extremely busy.
Are the referrals across in every grade level, or, I mean, you said there's been a spike, is that, you're seeing it everywhere?
They're down, and interestingly enough, they're down a little bit at Millard Driscoll. But the rest of the district are pretty uniformly up.
Okay.
Do you think we have enough psychologists? I think we're stretched thin. I think our building principals, look, I'm getting the nods. I think they're stretched thin.
And so, the other operating theory embedded in the DMC recommendations and the work we're doing as a district is as we strengthen our approach to intervention and serve kids in that kind of pre-referral period, the great hope is, the more effective we are at doing that, then the less number of referrals we'll have, and then the less number of testing, and it's that cascade effect. So then we can go back and re-examine the number of psychologists and other related service providers we might need. I think my point is to Ms. Gustafson's questions, what's the timeline here? It's a bit of an unknown because I think we're still trying to understand what is contributing to these number of referrals, and so we're monitoring also the hit rate, which means how many of the students that are referred actually wind up qualifying for special education. So it's complex work and it's ongoing, but I think the board needs to know, and I would say to the community too, we look at all of these very carefully, and I think we're doing the right work, and I expect that we'll see continued cost improvements. I think the last point I would just add is, the whole examination of how we provide services to students with needs as well as students who have disabilities. I think we're seeing improvement all across the board, and so consequently, in this budget compared to previous budgets, we're actually planning on spending less money in special education in general. We have more kids who are coming back to us who otherwise, in previous years would have been outplaced. So I think on the whole, we're trending in the right direction. But it is, it's not short-term work for short-term results here. This is big picture, long-term.
Yes, I think especially those outplacement numbers, I'm very encouraged by. Students returning, seeing options in the district as being very positive, and Sharon's made some wonderful contributions in helping some of our students slowly transition back to the district. So I think our outplacement numbers are really trending in the right direction. It's the first time I can say that for a long time.
There's a small group of people in town, probably less than a handful, that keep waving the banner of this $2 million savings that we're supposed to realize. And personally, I'm getting tired of it, because when you look at the work that you're doing to bring outplacements in, those are real savings. We're never going to see a check for $2 million. It's going to be very difficult to quantify against that $2 million without getting down to the granular level of students, which we can't. We have made changes in our paraprofessional ranks because of the DMC report. That's dramatic. We've made dramatic improvements in our reading program for this population as well as the entire population, the value of which is well beyond those $2 million. And you've delivered a budget to us this year that's the smallest increase that I've ever seen. So all of those pieces add up together. My simple math says it goes well beyond that $2 million. Thank you for your work.
Nice. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you. We now move on to the 1821 program.
Okay. Well, I am very excited to bring to the board a new initiative, a new program, which we're calling Community Steps, a new name for a new program. I would like to introduce Melissa Barrett, a special education teacher at the high school who has joined us this year. We're very fortunate to have Melissa with us. She comes with extensive experience in working and being a real force in transition programs for students this year. So good for Wilton that we have Melissa joining us. I think some of you might know Fran Monroe, a parent in the district who's made such wonderful contributions in helping this district and community understand the benefit of inclusion. And I think you all know Amy Korn, one of the assistant principals at the high school, who will be the high school administrator most connected to this program. We have long wanted to establish an 18 to 21-year-old program in the schools. And just as we discussed with the preschool, our obligation to our youngest students, the IDEA, the special education law, does require that we provide supports and services with special focus on transition and vocational services for a small number of our students ages 18 to 21 who have very significant and complex needs. In the past, these students have been in outplacement schools because we have not had a community-based program. And so we have spent a good amount of time this year brainstorming, thinking, visiting, and planning what we think will be a very exciting opportunity for this group of students and really for the community to, which has been so welcoming and inclusive of students with special needs. The focus of this program, the 18 to 21-year-old program, is, as we've written here, is to support the students as they define and pursue their life skills with a heavy concentration on independent living and vocational skills that are really embedded in the community.
And just to be clear for people at home that don't
Sure.
understand, it's our legal obligation to care
Right,
for
yeah.
these kids until they turn 21.
Right. Under the IDEA, as we had spoken about with our preschool students, we have an obligation for a small number of students, those students who have very complex needs and require this level of support. So this is our obligation. We are providing it now, but we're providing it out of district placements. So some of those quite costly and unique placements that have received some comments over time are supporting these students.
Thank
And I think we'll begin to show how a program like this is not only better for the students and the families, but it's actually quite cost effective too. So I think this is really a double win for the district. Melissa, I'm gonna let you, since you're the heart and soul of this, to take us through.
That's generous. But,
Awesome.
so one of the major kind of focal points and assets to this program being within the community is it allows us as educators and a school team to really facilitate with families the adult agency world, which is cumbersome and difficult to navigate. And this allows us to work with our families where now they don't really have that support system in their out-of-district placements or to the level of which we would give it to them. It also allows our students within the program to access resources in town. As you know, many of our out-of-district placements are not in the Wilton community. So these students who have complex learning profiles are taking a lot of time to learn a community that is not going to be theirs when they, after age 21. And it's a wonderful community, and we want them to have the opportunity to access it. So that is one of the benefits on both ends for this program. Go to the next. So when looking at the day and the life of a student in a community program, there's really 4 domains of transition. So the first 2 being functional academics and community participation. And those academic pieces really look at some pre-employment skills, resume building, mock interviews, getting them ready for a vocational setting. Community participation looks a lot at soft skills, so a lot of those incidental social skills that students without a complex profile just naturally learn. That is something we need to explicitly teach, and we need to teach it in a world that doesn't ring by bell every 45 minutes. And there's a travel training component to that. A lot of students in this population are not going to be drivers, some may, but others will not. And there is a level of instruction we need to give them so they can navigate the world. And the other 2 domains are independent living instruction and vocational skills. And the independent living instruction really looks at some adaptive skills, and it's really important that those skills are delivered in a dignified nature. They are not things that should be taught in the classroom, and following the the law of IDEA and the inclusion model that is supported here, we'll be able to implement those skills in an environment that anybody would work on those skills. And vocational skills are really looking at tasks that students would be doing, and that's working with host employers throughout the community. And again, some of those social skills that come into a job setting environment. So with this program having benefits not only for our students and families, it also has benefits for employers. It allows them to have really strong connections to the school system, to have a deeper tie to the community, and it's not taxing on their resources. The students are supported with Wilton Public Staff with a job coach that resembles the job description of a paraprofessional and overseen by a case manager, special ed teacher. So the employers are really giving us their environment, and we're providing meaningful work for them, and they get to have a closer connection to the community. So within our program, the supports that will be embedded in terms of personnel, we are looking at a special education teacher and a speech pathologist. Part-time. We'll go into the exact specifics of that. So to put it just into a little bit of a snapshot, a day in the life of a student in this program, we are going to be accessing the YMCA for some of the independent living instruction. There is a philosophical belief with transition programs, for good reason, that students do not enter the high school. It needs to be a literal separation for them. It's a hard transition for a lot of these students. They want to stay. So the Y being a place to work on those independent living skills, Comstock being a site for our academics, and our vocational internships would be at a wide range of employers, some of which are very eager to work with us in the fall.
Oh, that's me. So, the benefits, I've always thought that my son would leave the district and go to an outplacement at 18. He graduates this year. When I was told in the fall that you were developing a program for 18 to 21, I was skeptical.
I'll second that, yes you are.
Having worked with Melissa over the last 8 months, and of course talking to Anne, and knowing Naomi, the speech pathologist, I have embraced the whole program, and I believe that it is the right thing for my son. I think that the staying in the community and makes it easier for him to transition from 21 to adult life. He will make new friends, connect with business people, and just be a part of the community, even more so than he is now, because he'll be working in the community. And hopefully it will create job opportunities for him and for all of, his peers that are will graduate from that program as well. I also think that once we bring our kids back into the community, other programs will develop because of that. And there's a big need for graduates, 21 plus activities, evening activities. There's just so much need, and this will open up for everyone. And the benefits for the community, well, of course, it's, understanding, learning, and living with people with disabilities is part of everybody's life. We're always going to need, have people with disabilities around us when our parents get older. And so it just makes it a lot easier to learn and understand, promotes diversity in the community, which we don't have a lot of diversity here. We understand, you learn to understand disabilities better. I know that just having run Best Buddies and Top Inclusion Models for the last 8 years, and being around this population a lot more than just with my son, it's such a joy, and the unique qualities that these kids have, and it's so much, it's fun, and you don't get that unless you're with them all the time. So I think it's going to be a great program.
I don't know what it looks like that.
We're, hard to follow up after that. we wanted to give the board an idea of how this will be delivered as a very cost-effective program, and that's very hard to read.
Yeah, we don't have that.
We don't have that.
We don't have that.
They were
There you
updated.
This is a package.
Can you read it any better? It's
Yes.
already, oh, okay.
Let's just take us through it, Ann.
Okay, sure. Looking at the expense side of, as Melissa mentioned, we're looking for staffing for job coaches, a full-time special education teacher, a .4 FTE of a speech pathologist. We have transportation costs calculated, and Dick's been helpful in getting us transportation estimates. We're going to be, if we go forward, using Comstock, and they've been highly cooperative, and there'll be no additional charge to use the Comstock space. Independent living skills will be at the YMCA at no additional cost to the district or student. We've put costs in for materials, just the basics of getting a program up and running. There's a cost in here, if you can see it, for $1,000 for food. There is a kitchen at Comstock. Our students will hopefully be making a snack or lunch to go out on their work site. When we looked at the 4 students who we would hope would be with us next year, looking at the out-of-district costs, which are real costs attached to where we thought their placements would be next year, the total for those 4 students comes to the number you see there listed as out-of-district costs. When we take the sum total of the costs, expenses itemized here, the cost of a year to run the Community Steps program, staff, materials, transportation, as you can see, comes out less than the cost of the out-of-district placements, and of course the added benefit to the district and the students of being in the community. So again, we think this is a win-win, good for kids and families, and at no additional cost to the district, even a reduced expense to the district. So we're available for your questions.
Questions?
I want to thank Mrs. Monroe for speaking and being here tonight because, I think often the community and get so hung up on the financial aspect, like what the numbers are. And today when we met with Ann and Melissa and Amy, the whole community is going to benefit. And, I think if you walk through the high school, you see the students. But again, like Lori said with the bookends, we want to provide the best care because these are members of our community and they bring something to our lives and we're all in this together. And so the idea, I had never really thought, kind of knew about the 18 to 21, but the cost to, the emotional, it would be hard. I mean, and again, I think just will make our community better and if we're providing a great opportunity. And I just want to say one more thing to Melissa's point about the dignity. I never thought about that either. The fact is some of the, you can't teach some of these skills in a classroom, and that's not fair to the student and to the, to any of us. And I think it's easy to take for granted, all the skills that, a typical child just learns. You don't necessarily have to teach them certain things. They just, and I think that this program and working with the Y and Comstock, which I assume will be familiar settings, and also having the support from the high school. I understand also having to get them out of the school and not cling to this this building. But it's just, thank you for all this work, and thank you again just for helping them and advising them.
I echo that. I don't know a lot about our existing 18-21 program.
Doesn't exist.
Well, no, our outplacement efforts, I'm sorry. Is it typical that we have approximately 4 at any given time that?
We
are
think
18
that
to 20?
number, we estimate that number is going to grow.
Yep, right now, if we looked at the 4-year span, so 9th through 12th grade, we have 6 students currently out of district who we foresee needing 18 to 21 services. We have 5 students within our 4 grades right now that we foresee needing 18 to 21 services.
Do we have, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, and will the resources that you're laying out here be enough to cover a couple more kids as well?
Well, they only stay until 21, so
Understood.
that they're with us for 2 to 3 year span, so.
Let me ask a question a different way. You're building the system right now to handle 4 kids, will it handle 6 kids? Or do you need additional resources?
I think that depends on the individual need of the student, because that their needs can look different, and that therefore their services can look different, and then the resources look different.
We might need an additional job coach, depending on schedules, but there again, that student will now not need to be outplaced at a cost of approximately $90,000 to $100,000 with transportation, and so we'll still have the same cost benefit, I think.
And I should
Even
have,
if we need to add a para.
I should have prefaced my question with I agree with everything that Laura said.
Oh.
I mean, this is about the kids in our community. I'm sorry.
I have 2 questions. Do we have any kids ages 18 to 21 who are currently outplaced who will be coming back?
Sounds like,
Yes, we do.
And that's included in the form?
Yeah,
Yes.
there's at least 3, yeah.
And I imagine for a parent, this is just a huge decision. You want to make sure you're, as you said, you were very skeptical at the beginning. Are we confident that this will have broad buy-in from the parents of those children?
Yes, for the 2 families that we've worked with, we've spent a lot of time with them, along with Naomi, who is our speech pathologist, who's not here. She's done just as much work with the families, and it's been time, and to echo a little bit of what Mrs. Monroe said, it's been visits to other sites and spending time together, and coffee after school, and talking about what it's going to look like, and there's really been a team effort there to support those families through that, and I think a lot of them, in hindsight, if this had, this might have been something they're happy to see it develop now.
I think one of the real benefits for families, and Mrs. Monroe, I'm sure would support this, the world of adult services is quite overwhelming for families. It's filled with initials DDS and BRS, and each one has a multi-page form and tons of regulations. One of the real perks of this program is Melissa's expertise in helping families navigate that very complicated world, and our goal is that when our students leave us at 21, they're seamlessly transitioning into adulthood. And I think there are very few programs around that will really offer that level of care and service to students this age. So I think for families, it's really very beneficial.
does this program take housing into consideration? How does that work? I mean, 18 to 21, if a
school
child
day.
is outplaced, they're outplaced in another community, their domicile still Wilton?
Yes.
They're day programs.
Okay.
It's a day program.
And
It's a day program that follows the school day
Mm-hmm.
and the school calendar.
And these students have IEPs.
Right.
And I just want to do one bookkeeping, is that children who, from birth to 3, then move into preschools, as soon as they turn 3, we call it 18 to 21, but they don't get kicked out at the age of 21. So will one of you explain how the...
So the 21st birthday follows the July 1st calendar. So if your birthday is in June, and you turn 21 in June, that's the end of your school year. If you turn 21 in July or a date after July 1st, you get the whole other year of wraparound services.
That was a regulation that changed a number of years ago.
Hmm.
So if a student turns 21 July 2nd, our obligation continues for that entire school year.
But you can imagine that people whose birthdays are in December or January, it's nice to have,
Right.
instead of being like, okay, now.
Yeah.
You finish the year together.
Yeah, exactly.
Other questions?
Yeah, a couple. Who determines if a student is qualified for this program?
The PPT makes the decision which students need services from 18 to 21.
Okay, I'll go back again. Who
Sure.
makes the decision? Not PPT doesn't tell me. Who makes the decision? How's that done? You have a PPT, and then who is the ultimate determining factor?
The PPT is a team?
Yeah,
team.
I know.
So it's a team
So the-
decision.
So the team.
The team,
Okay.
right.
Suppose a family says, no, I want my kid out. I don't want him in this program. I want him to go. Can they do that?
They don't want services from 18 to
No,
21? Or
they want services, but they don't want it here. They want out their
I think
child
I think the question is, do you go to due process like you do?
to go away.
Regular.
Even though we're running this
I would
program.
have to know a lot more. I think, you know, as I've said many times, for all its resources, Connecticut has very few special education schools, and I think parents are going to find this a very positive.
Well, I would hope so, with the work you're doing. I mean, that's, but you never know. The parents may say, no, maybe the kid's a problem. They don't want the kid around anymore. They want to, you know, I don't know. Oh, you know, some parents
Yeah,
do crazy
no, I
things.
understand, and
Okay,
there are,
so can they do that? Would they be able to do that and force us to outplace or just?
that's gonna be a PPT decision, again, looking at all the issues.
Okay.
We might feel that this is the our responsibility as a PPT is to offer the appropriate program. Parents have a right to disagree and,
There you go, then it moves through the
Then it
process.
moves.
Okay. Is there a graduate Best Buddies program? You mentioned the Best Buddies, and I really, you know, is there a program for students of this age that Best Buddies runs
There
also?
is, and Melissa's just working on getting it organized to,
Okay.
you know, be attached to the 18 to 21.
All right, good, because I mean, it's just such a phenomenal program. I mean, it's just, so there is they have
There's
a,
an 18 to 21 chapter. You have to have a host site, which at that age gap is usually a college. So we're in the
Yeah.
midst of conversation with NCC of having them partner as a host site for Best Buddies.
okay, all right, good, okay, good.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you. Come
We now
visit
move-
it when it's up and running.
We now move on to the facility feasibility study.
Great. So earlier this year, as a result of questions primarily centered around perceived excess space at Millard Driscoll, I recommended to the board that we engage a firm to conduct a facilities feasibility study. Because as the enrollment, should the enrollment decline trend continue and those smaller classes move through, we're going to see the potential for surplus classes all across the district. So we propose conducting a study and analysis of our total educational space across the 4 schools, the current utilization, the future needs, and then solicit some space utilization recommendations based on that analysis. The information generated by that analysis would provide all of you, the Board of Ed, a basis for decision-making regarding possible alternative grade level configurations and possible alternative use of school facilities. So the scope of the study is all 4 schools, an examination of enrollment, an examination of our educational program, both the existing program and whatever future plans we have, the capacity analysis, and then the current grade level organization. We solicited proposals from 3 firms, Milone and McBroom, DRA, and then NESDEC, the New England School Development Council. All 3 of those firms have strong reputations and solid references. I've personally worked with DRA, and Milone and McBroom, as you know, is engaged with us on an enrollment study. I've never personally worked with NESDEC, but they've provided services to Wilton in the past, and many Connecticut districts are affiliates of NESDEC, including most locally New Canaan, Westport, and Norwalk, and then up the coast, Avon, Glastonbury, Cheshire, just to name a few. I spoke with Brian Lutzy some time ago in New Canaan about his affiliation and that experience New Canaan's had with NESDEC, and he spoke very positively of the services that they provide. So tonight, I'm not asking for a motion to approve it. I wanted to share with you kind of my thoughts and recommendation, and then when we come back around to the next meeting, I'll ask for a motion to approve one of the firms. So you have the three proposals. The scope of the work is similar. The cost of the work varies actually pretty significantly. So at the very high end, Milone and McBroom had proposed a cost of $33,000 to conduct that work. DRA came in at $22,800, and NESDEC was the low bid at $18,975. My recommendation is going to be that we contract with NESDEC. Obviously, they're the least expensive. Based on the references and the work that they've conducted in other places, I think we can expect a quality product from them. The scope of the work is comparable across the other two firms, and so I don't see a reason at this point to spend even a couple thousand more dollars with DRA or a substantially greater amount with Milone. I think you'll recall the other, if there was any benefit to going with Milone, it was because they have a relationship already with Taisukim, and that's something we had discussed earlier this year. I don't know how material that will be in really coming away with some clear understanding of what we have, what we need, and what we might do in the future. So the other piece I just wanted to note for you is this would be part one of a two-part study. In conversations with Chris Burney, he was reflecting his own observations about the aging HVAC system at Cider Mill and at Middlebrook, and had recommended that we try to fold into this a study of the architectural designs and the mechanical designs. So I've reached back out to those firms, and my thought would be to conduct a second follow-up study that would inform some of the long-range planning that really would focus specifically on the existing infrastructure, and that would factor into any decisions that we would make going forward about space utilization and what we might do if we were to choose to regrade band or something else.
Thank you. How much time did you spend on this with the Business Operations Committee?
We looked at it a few weeks ago.
We discussed it several times.
And then earlier this year.
Do either of you have any?
No, I would go with Kevin's recommendation. I was a supporter of the earlier, now almost 6 months ago, whenever we got the Malone, recommendation. But I bow to Kevin's judgment here. He knows what he's looking for. My question is, why do we have to wait another 2 weeks? Just go ahead. Could we possibly
honoring
vote
a
on
process
it?
that we
Yeah,
put in
and
place
get it
here.
done. We've been at this now for 9 months or more, discussing it and bouncing it around. I'd like to see us move so we can get things underway, but I guess we have to wait.
Did you mention how long this study
So
was?
each of the proposals
No, we know. We
range
talked
about
about
3
it
to
a
4
long time
months.
ago.
So
3 to 4 months.
the NESDEC proposal would be about 4 months.
And does it have to be while school's in session?
No,
That makes no difference to the study?
No, because we're going to provide all the information they need. I mean, they'll come out and look at the facilities, but they're not going to be studying, students and what they're doing.
I think it's been at least 4 or 5 months ago when we first discussed it, and I was a proponent because of the Tyson Kim relationship and knowledge, experience, and the fact that they know our buildings better than anyone, or as well as anyone, and that connection would seem to make sense to me. But we said no, so we went back and solicited additional input, additional opportunities and questions, and NESDEC came up, and I'm fine with it. I just think we need to move it.
But doesn't it make sense though to do it while the building's populated so they could see traffic patterns and what have you through the building? Or is that not part of the study?
Yeah, well, they're going to be looking at, we're going to be providing them all kinds of information about classroom usage. I don't
Okay.
know that they need to see physical students in the classrooms.
Okay.
Either way, we'll have an opportunity before the year ends, so if that's a critical piece to their work, that didn't come through in any of the proposals,
all right.
that doesn't really fit with what I'm thinking, but, my intent would be to engage, as soon as the board approves a recommendation, if the board approves a recommendation, so that would give us the last third of the school year, the last fourth of the school year.
Chris, do you have any additional thoughts, comments?
I support the recommendation.
Okay, I'd like to actually make a motion that we move this item from where it is in the agenda into the action items and make it a discuss. and-
Second.
I need
Let
two,
them finish the motion.
I need 2/3 of the board to agree to the motion in order to move it. We have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Seeing none opposed, it moves into the action item section as the first item. So we now move on to the facility feasibility study as discussed and approved. I'd like to make a motion that we approve it, and I'd also like to point out that we don't actually have to approve it because under the terms and conditions of your contract, you have the ability to make a decision like this on your own, but to show that we did discuss it publicly, I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
There's a second on it. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go.
Any opposed? None. Great, we now move on to formally action item number 1, which is now 2, policy 1110.1, parent involvement. It's on for discuss and approve. We saw it last time around. Are there any further discussions on it? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Abstain.
opposed?
I have to abstain. I wasn't
You're
here.
abstaining, okay. The record notes that Mr. Hemley abstained because he wasn't here. We move on to policy 3541.5, reporting of transportation safety complaints. Covered that again at the last meeting. I'll make a motion again to approve that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Seeing none, one abstention, Mr. Hemley. We'll move on to policy 3160, budget transfers. I'll make a motion to approve that as well. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Any opposed? Seeing none, we move on to future business. The next meeting is March 23rd. And as we do at the beginning and end of every meeting, there's an... I'm sorry? Yeah, I should. You want to give me some details?
The March 20th, that's the Board of Finance's public hearing on the Board of Education budget.
Thank you.
Do you want to mention your meetings on Monday?
I do, were those, I'm not sure if they were even confirmed yet, so I was planning meeting with the PTAs.
There's an email.
There's an
Right,
email.
yeah, they are.
Right, so-
So, who's running the joint, right?
Yeah, so it says superintendent coffees are on the 13th. There's one during the day and one in the evening.
1 o'clock and 6 o'clock? Great, we're gonna talk about budget and threats to budget.
And that's going to be at the Middlebrook Media Center.
Correct.
Wonderful. And of course, the Board of Finance meeting, I think it's going to be very important to attend. Again, that is on March 20th. Location,
Middlebrook.
Middlebrook.
Auditorium, yep.
Okay.
May I just ask a question? Have we changed or looked at the adjustments in the school the balance of the year calendar? Has that been decided and published yet or not? Are we still waiting to see what changes?
Oh, you mean as far as snow days?
Snow days and stuff like that?
Well, we have been adding days to the calendar as we've been closed.
Yeah.
So I'm anticipating we have an issue tomorrow and maybe one the following week. So, I mean, we just publish it as we go.
Well, historically, it's not set,
It's not
finalized
until
until
Right.
April.
No, graduation's definitely not.
Right now, the last day is what, that Tuesday? Tuesday or Wednesday, we'd have to check the official record.
Yeah,
But, the bottom line is as we get snow days, it pushes out a day. And right now, it looks like high school graduation is, I believe, June 24th.
we're looking at 17th to the 24th. Bob and I just talked about it yesterday, and so
Okay.
we're gonna wait to see what unfolds here in the next few days.
Okay.
All right.
Okey-doke. As we do at the beginning and end of every meeting, there's an opportunity for comments from the public. You have 3 minutes if there's anybody. I won't make you state your name and street again.
Docket against my minutes. I just said a couple of other things.
Thank you for your patience.
I understand completely. You've got a lot on your plate. I may not have heard it accurately, but I think it was said that the pre-K services were mandated, or the pre-K program was mandated, but you corrected that recently for the public. It's not that the
Correct.
program is mandated, it's that the services for the special education or the 504 students.
Special education, is it okay if I respond?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just to be perfectly clear, there, a couple of provisions under IDEA. And so, number one is providing services to students beginning age 3, and number 2, the least restrictive environment is the other real key provision. It is not that preschool is mandated.
Yes.
Right. I also had heard that a statement was made that providing a pre-K program versus just services was less costly. What I would like to happen is that we have real numbers backing that up, because those are generalized statements. And we've had some generalized statements and sometimes numbers in the past that haven't been accurate. And I think we want to be as accurate as possible. How do we come to those numbers? How do we come to assess that it's more or less costly? Who's doing the numbers? What are the resources from it for developing those numbers? The other part is, I understand there was a committee for the Miller Driscoll Early Childhood Learning Center, which is the new name for the pre-K program. And I would just ask that those meetings, or any of the meetings we put on the calendar, because I didn't see them. And that was a committee that came up with, costs of what would be charged for general ed students in the program. And I think these are important enough that the public needs to know when they're happening so they can attend if they want to, and then they can find minutes and agendas. But I didn't find anything, and I think we're looking to make sure that those gaps are filled. The only other thing is that I understand there were some questions on the budget about where the decrease in the pre-K program, it went down significantly, I think, in the budget this year, but apparently benefits for the staff were not included in that. So that probably needs to be redone, because I understand accounting-wise, you're supposed to include benefits in your costs when you're providing a budget. So I think that, again, is in order for the town and the families and the residents to understand what all of this is costing. We need to be as accurate as possible. That's it.
Great, thanks very much. Is there anybody else from the public? Seeing none, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that Mr. Straub opposed. He wants to stay. Any words?
Mr. Hemmerly, I can tell you that we won the game,
Okay.
64 to 57.
Very good. Oh, wow,
Wow.
close
That's
game.
great.
Well done. Congrats to the boys' basketball team.
Yeah, for sure.
You have 5 minutes?
I do.
Here we go.
And now we play again, that was a good game then. Pretty close.